Welcome to another episode of Educating Homebuyers, the podcast. I'm your host, Brady Hay, and my mortgage team has over 9 years of mortgage experience here in Des Moines, Iowa. Whether you're buying your first home, upgrading, investing, or simply just curious about the market, this show is all about helping you and future homebuyers feel informed, educated, and comfortable as you take your next step. Each week, I sit down with real estate professionals, past clients, and local experts to unpack real stories, real advice, and what you actually need to know when buying a home today. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Today's episode shines a light on one of the most important and often overlooked roles in the real estate transaction, the transaction coordinator. We're talking through what actually happens behind the scenes from contract to close, deadline tracking, document management, communication and compliance, and why having a strong system matters long before your volume increases. We dig into when an agent is truly ready for a transaction coordinator, the difference between licensed and unlicensed, and how following a model or transaction calendar can completely elevate your client experience. If you're looking to run a smoother business, stay proactive instead of reactive, and show clients the real value you bring, this conversation's for you. Stephanie Adair, welcome to Educating Homebuyers.
Hello.
How are you, my friend?
Good.
Welcome back.
Yes.
I'm not going to hide that. The fact that we've done this already one time.
Okay. It's okay.
We, for everybody listening, had a little mishap, and the footage of Stephanie's first go around of attempting a podcast was lost in the abyss. So
hey, but I got a practice run.
You did, and I'm very appreciative of your
No
willingness to come back and continue to be a value add, because I think that the content we went over was a 11 out of 10, and I think it's really valuable stuff. So excited to have the conversation.
Yes.
So let's start off. Just give everybody a background. Who's Stephanie? What's your role? And what do you do?
My name is Stephanie. I am licensed. So I am a licensed real estate agent, but I don't use it for sales as most people do.
Yeah.
I am licensed just for the sake of being able to legally do a good portion of my job.
Yeah.
Like you said, licensed versus unlicensed, we'll get to that and what you can do. But I have been in the real estate industry since 2017. Originally started with, literally like getting coffee, run this errand, that kind of stuff. And then I quickly learned from my first broker, a lot, almost everything. I've just tweaked since then.
Yeah.
And I'm with my third brokerage, and I've been here for 2 years.
Okay.
With the Jennings real estate team at RE/MAX and Ames.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So give everybody a background. And you don't have to go over everything, because I know you wear a lot of hats, you do a lot of tasks, but high level, what is a transaction coordinator good for, both from an agent perspective and a client perspective?
So from an agent perspective, the most important thing is that I'm at my desk running the details so that you don't have to be. When it boils down to it, real estate is sales, right? So you're not going to be meeting new people. Thank you. Meeting new people, getting new clients, being able to attend meetings or appointments if you aren't out in the field. So from an agent perspective, my job is to be at my desk so that you don't have to. Yeah. And you can keep doing your job.
No doubt.
Get new business in. On top of course, the actual job of a TC and taking those tasks off your plate. And then from a client perspective, it's just having that extra person as a resource. Because again, let's say your agent is out and about. Let's say they're in an appointment. They don't want to be rude to take a phone call while they're sitting with another client.
Of course.
If for some reason something's going on and you need another backboard, hi,
Here
I'm
you
there.
are.
Yep.
Awesome.
So.
Yeah, and I think that's, I would argue that, at least from my perspective as the lender, there's a lot of things that you probably take care of that is kind of flying under the radar. It gets overlooked often.
Yeah.
So it's going to be great to highlight some of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, because frankly, you deserve it. You carry a lot of weight in the transaction. And it also, I can tell you from a lender who's obviously worked with a plethora of different, people in our industry, you can tell a big difference when you're involved versus a transaction that doesn't have somebody like you. So I think it's valuable stuff for people to hear a perspective from your side. So
I personally think that when there's another TC on the other end, like when I make my intro to an agent and I'm like, hey, I'll be the TC for so-and-so. And they're like, great, I have one too.
Here's
and I'm
mine.
like, score.
A couple of type A people that get to help make those things happen, right?
It's very exciting.
I love it.
We love to see each other in the email thread. So,
I love it. So give everybody an inside look. What's a day in your life look like? What are some things that you focus on?
All that boring stuff. Now, granted, I don't think it's boring, but I truly like my job. Anybody out there knows that I love my little desk keyboard job situation. But basically, my job, simply put, is contract to close, management and compliance. Okay. So just double checking and making sure that literally every T is crossed, every deadline's met. If something needs to be done as far as a courier or errand, that's done, making sure that settlement, attorney, like the title opinion, you know, everybody's on the same page. And then of course, relating that back to the client as well. Yeah. I always joke that I'm that fairy in the fairy door in the corner. Mm-hmm. If there's something that an agent needs to get done, and if they didn't do it, it's not that there's a little fairy somewhere that's like, who did
Somebody's
it then?
Gotta do
if
it.
you didn't do it, and you know you didn't do it,
right.
Somebody did it. Mm-hmm. It was probably me.
Yeah, and the reality is that like there is a lot of stuff like that has to happen, and you pick up the pieces and kind of handle that. And I think that's something that's not commonly known from a client-facing perspective is like most clients don't realize how many compliant things have to happen in a real estate transaction.
I'm that annoying person that comes in with, hey, there's a date missing. There's an initial missing. Well, did this come before this, or was this agreed on? Because I don't have a signature, and I'm the one that's tracking.
And it's all legal stuff,
most of the time. Yeah.
Right. And it's super important to have clear understanding of what that looks like. So, document-wise, you know, like that's really what you're overlooking. Yep. What's your checks and balances look like? How do you identify that? Like, what's your process look like to make sure that everything's taken care of, I guess?
I'm a spreadsheet warrior.
Okay.
I've got checklists on checklists. I mean, granted, at this point in my career, I'm not really actually marking things off on a list because it's just ingrained.
Done it enough times.
Yeah, it's just in my brain. But I have all that because I use it for my agent training. But it's kind of it's hard to explain. You know what needs to be done, what has to be there for regulation, and I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of hard to put it out because you just do. Right.
Well, I would tell you that, like,
I don't know.
My thought is like, even from my side on the lending side, there's a lot of things that I do that the client never sees. Right. And that's kind of our hope. Right. Yeah. Like we hope that we just take care of those things and it seems really easy.
Right.
Because that's what we want. Right. Like we've designed these processes so that the client doesn't have to stress about them.
The only thing, and this is actually something I tell new agents to do, is unfortunately, and I think we all can agree, that there has been some talk in the past or a common misconception with real estate agents where, oh, well, don't you guys just open the door? I think we've all heard and seen that
That's
online.
all agents are good for, right?
Right. And, you know, and from a client perspective, of course, like you guys see the listing you see the listing photos, the listing garb, the funny videos and all that stuff. It looks like this whole marketing thing. Yes, we want to make it easy, and yes, we want to make sure that they, you know, don't necessarily see some of the hiccups that might be here and there, because we know it's a hiccup, but we also know it's going to be solved tomorrow by noon. So like, there's no reason to bring this up. But from a new agent perspective, I do like to tell them that, like, hey, give them the checkpoint though. Like, you called and you checked to make sure that the appraisal was scheduled. Yeah. And so, like,
let your client know that you did that.
Even that's a double dip. Like, even if you already ordered the appraisal, I mean, they know you ordered the appraisal because they had to pay for it. But like, they knew that all of these, you know, checks were in place already. Yeah. But the realtor called and said, hey, this got scheduled, right? With the listing agent. Yes, it is. It's scheduled. We're good. Yes, you did your job and you checked on it, but tell the client, do the checkpoint. Tell them, hey, just so you know, I worked on your file today. I did this thing. I mean, granted, that's a simple thing. Right. But use your checkpoints as actual check-ins with your client.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. We actually had a very similar thing. John on my team, he's really good at asking clients post-closing for feedback on like how the experience was, how did they feel it went. And one of his clients gave him feedback that like between clear to close and closing, there's a dead period, right? Because he got the deal done and we were clear to close multiple weeks in advance. Right. And then the client didn't hear anything, which from somebody who's in the industry and does it often and does it multiple times a day.
We know it wasn't dead.
Know, well, but we also know that like things were taken care of and there was nothing needed basically. But the client doesn't a lot of times know any different.
Right.
And so what he actually added is a checkpoint between clear to close and closing is 1 week prior to closing. They're always getting a phone call from our team,
right,
letting them know like, hey, everything's done. You're taken care of.
Yep.
We're still waiting on numbers, maybe to balance, final figures, whatever it may be.
Right.
And we just think that extra touch point is just that much because the clients don't do this every day, right?
No.
They don't see the things that we do. And I will be the first to admit that like there's a lot of things that just happen and seem like second nature in our world, but the clients still deserve to know about it.
Right.
So, and I think there's a fine line too between using automation to execute on updates and doing manual updates,
It's actually really funny you say that because I used to have a system in the past where I would set up this like automated transaction calendar, and I had these emails that would automatically go out like 15 days before close and be like, hey, just so you know, if the appraisal hasn't already been done, about this time is when it's going to get handled. So expect a phone call from your real estate agent or from your lender. And remember, this is automated.
Yep.
So if you've already received a message, great. If you haven't, one's coming.
Yep.
But like I would do that. That way, no matter what, they knew, oh, okay, so this is about this time. I'll hear something soon if I haven't already. But then, of course, you still actually make the physical phone call or the text or the email, however you want to do it.
So I've got automation set up as well, and I've actually found it being, in a sense, my accountability partner, right? Like, so as the lender, so for example, as soon as I get a deal under contract, there's an automated email that goes out to both real estate agents involved, letting them know that my team's going to be handling the financing, introducing my team members as well.
Right.
And on the very first line of that email, it says, if I haven't already, I usually start a group chat with both agents.
Yeah.
And I've just implemented that. I think it's a nice communication barrier that just makes it open line. Seems like texting's just easier to get a hold of a lot of people.
Real estate agents specifically.
Correct.
Yes, it works best.
And so I've actually discovered that when I notice that, because I get CC'd on that email, I'll notice that and be like, oh shoot, I forgot to start that group chat. And then it's like an accountability thing. It's like, no, this is what my people deserve to be informed. And so that's a fine line in why I like automation to help me hold me accountable. But to that example too is things like appraisal and more specific to the client updates.
Yeah.
Deserve to be manual still. You can't automate the entire process.
No, right.
So
of course. Well, especially if let's say you learn early on that a file is has a waiver for the appraisal. You don't want to look like an idiot.
Which is something I've ran into, right?
With appraisal stuff coming out and they're like, wait, what?
That's actually
Brady said I didn't need one. You're saying there's going to be one, and then freaking them out. You have to make sure that you go back in and make sure that everything's
and I've had to actually update
customized.
Because the appraisal email, the automated one, does get triggered the moment that it's moved. It's not when it's the appraisal order, but it's when we move the loan from setup to processing in our file.
Right.
And on those specific files where there is an appraisal waiver, that email still goes out. So I've actually had to change the wording of it to say, if applicable.
Yes.
And so that way then, because usually if there is a waiver, I've already had that conversation with the client and let them know. And frankly, I always let the client make the informed choice. I don't assume that they don't want an appraisal.
Right.
Even if you have the waiver, I still think it's important to give them the choice. Hey,
yeah,
here's where we're at. We don't technically need one. And for context, for anybody watching, if you're not familiar with what an appraisal waiver is, it's a good opportunity to talk about it.
Yep.
An appraisal waiver is typically found when there's enough online data and frankly equity. Usually equity plays a big role in it. So how much a client's putting down towards their down payment. That those two factors usually allow our automated system to determine that we don't need a physical appraisal done. That's basically when that happens. And it's great, right? Because it saves the client money, and there is enough online data in today's world to discover that a home is probably sufficiently priced.
Yep.
On the flip side of that, from a protection standpoint, is obviously if you're writing an offer on a property and you don't get an appraisal done, you don't then have that peace of mind to know that it is truly, truly worth what you're paying for it, right?
Yeah.
But the way I always kind of phrase it to my clients is when you're making that decision, if you're putting 20, 25, 30, 40% towards your down payment already,
right,
the price or the cost, the appraisal price of the property is less important because you're buying a home with a ton of equity already and you're not planning on selling it right away.
Yeah.
And the appraisal value is really only important when you go to sell the home.
Right.
And that's why there is usually a waiver on properties that have more equity. We're not going to probably get a waiver to fire on a minimum down payment first time home buyer loan, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a good example. I feel like it's a good time to talk about that. But
no, yeah, definitely brought it up.
What else? What else is new in your world, or anything else you think that's important for people to hear?
Well, we did last time. We talked about kind of TCs or admins in general, closers, whatever, bringing up kind of nitpicky, like what do you prefer when things need to be updated? And we talked about what an amendment is versus an addendum. Okay. Because when you get to the nerdy side of compliance, there's a difference between those two documents. Yeah. And not that a lot of people actually like hold it to that, you know, like if you did one versus the other, no one's going to make you switch it and then re-sign it. Of
course.
But one thing that we talked about was, okay, we have a signed PA. We're now a week or two in. Something's changed, either the close date, the purchase price, seller credit, something has changed on the purchase agreement. What's the best way to do that for tracking and compliance? I personally think that you should never go back and cross off the purchase agreement and like initial there because some online signing software, now granted, of course, I know that there's a whole, you know, verification thing that can go with it, but online signing software can be so different that there isn't always a time signature on the document, just initials. And then you don't know when that was changed. Like if you're looking back at a file from 3 years ago because you have to, something came up, let's say something came up in court and you have to go back and look at it. Well, when was that change done? I can't find the email, but I do have the PDF. Wait, but when was that signed? Because I don't have a date.
Yep. Especially if there's multiple changes too.
Right. And if there's multiple stuff, like, okay, so there's 3 different sections that were changed. Were they all changed at the same time? I don't know, especially with like, and then, you know, even if you're not using an online software to sign and you're doing physical, they don't always date it. So again,
and what if you can't read their handwriting?
And you can't, and so that just makes it more difficult. So I personally, if you're going to change the purchase agreement, original terms, you amend the purchase agreement with a separate document to lay out what the change was, because then that reiterates again, you know, who the buyers and sellers were, the date of the change, all that good stuff. It's right there.
Curious, when you say change the terms, is that anything on there?
Anything.
So like even a date change is considered a change in terms. So that would be where an amendment would be the recommended thing. Yeah. And then the addendum
would be adding anything in. So an example would be, let's say the original purchase agreement did not have seller closing costs included. That would be new. So you would do an addendum to add seller closing costs to the purchase agreement, let's say after the inspection. And there's like something agreed there where the seller is going to put $2,000 in closing costs or whatever. Yeah. That's new. So that's an addendum. Right. But if there were closing costs already there and they are going to either increase or go down, you would use an amendment.
Got it. So that's changing.
That's the easy. Well, because that's an easy way to clarify again that this was there, it just got changed, or it wasn't there and it was added later. It's just another kind of unspoken way to just identify what happened and how we got there.
I love it. Yeah, that's really valuable. I think. And from a client perspective, they probably don't know that kind of stuff, right? And it is a very legal process, right? Because all of the things or the terms on a purchase agreement are legally required to be executed on, right?
Right.
So
I will, and even other terms, like a common one would be pest inspections. So we have 2 associations here, DMAR and CIBR, for the different areas, and both of their purchase agreements are different when you get to, like, let's say the pest inspection line. In Des Moines, there's like an actual checkmark system where it's who's paying for it, seller, buyer, or what are you doing with it? There's like a blank. In Ames, it's on CIBR, it's automatically programmed to the sellers ordering and paying for it. So in Ames, on the Ames one, if you have, I don't know why, but let's say you have a buyer that's like, I want to order and pay for that on my own. Or you have a seller that's like, well, we don't want to do that at all. Yeah. I would even go as far to argue that the day the purchase agreement is signed, I would leave the PA alone and I would just check that little box at the bottom. I know that all you lenders look for. Were there any amendments or addendums? Yep. I would check that little box and put it on an amendment and say, pest inspection not happening here. Right. Nobody's doing it like that, you know.
I actually learned for the first time middle of last year, in other markets, it's not even like a lot of times it's not even standard practice to order a pest inspection.
It's not.
And because of how much business I do in the Des Moines Metro, it does seem like it's just standard practice that it's ordered on every single transaction.
Yep.
Well,
remember, everything's negotiable.
Right.
But standard around here is typically the seller orders and pays for the pest inspection as a,
Yeah, and the specific situation I had was a VA loan, which it is required to be done on, right?
Yep.
And so I went and like my team in the middle of the process said, hey, can you send us a copy of the pest inspection? And the listing agent said, I didn't order one. Like we didn't know we needed one. And I'm just like so accustomed to.
Well, specifically in like the Marshalltown area.
Yeah.
They don't do it there unless you've asked for it from a buyer.
Which is reasonable,
as a buyer.
right?
Yep, nope, it's fine. But you, depending on your market, that is something that's completely kind of all over the board.
I just thought that was a really interesting learning point for me. Is like I didn't realize because of how common they are in our neck of the woods that it's not technically standard practice and it's a part of the negotiations. It should be anyways.
Truly, it comes down to, as you know, underwriting. You can mark up that purchase agreement all you want, but underwriting is going to be, hey, so no, we need this, or no, you can't do that.
I think that was one of the things we talked about last time too, was the process of when a item or document or something is being requested. It's because underwriting needs it, right? It's not because we want
to make everybody's day worse or whatever. It truly is when somebody's coming at you from a compliance point of view. For the client, we're all protecting you. If we leave this signature undone, that leaves it open for you to have a problem later. If we don't, from underwriting, if they don't double, triple check that you still have a job a day before closing, that doesn't protect you.
Right.
Like, we want to make sure that you can keep your house and pay for it.
That's changed a lot since the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Like I have so many, clients that I've worked with, or, what's probably the most common is when a parent will co-sign for a kid buying a house. The common theme that I'll get is, oh, well, I didn't have to do this when I bought. It's like, well, yeah, but that's also what led to predatory lending and caused the literal 2008 housing crisis. And so that's what we're really, for education perspective is like, that's what we're trying to protect. Anytime we're requesting a income document, a bank statement, a corrected signature, a addendum or an amendment, anything that's referred to, it's to protect you guys as the homeowners and frankly, to protect our entire industry and the value of real estate because we don't want that to happen again, right?
This time of year, even specifically, a good portion of my job right now is to make sure that dates say 2026.
Yeah.
Just because
honestly,
in January, my compliance job is, does this say 2026?
Yeah.
Because everybody's just moving so fast and autofill is a thing and, auto correct and whatever. And everybody's moving so quickly that it comes down to the very simplest things.
And the moment that closing date says January 20th, 2025, and you're trying to close in January 2026, it basically voids the entire contract, or what does that look like?
I know. Let's say underwriting found it, like 2 weeks before closing. And let's say that the buyers and sellers are actually in a squabble right now over inspection. All one side of the pie needs is one little mistake.
Yep.
And that purchase agreement. Oh, we can just walk away then. Yep. Awesome. Great.
Because we didn't close last year in January.
Because we didn't check everything up until that point to make sure that it was correct.
Yeah.
So when people like me or closer, settlement, underwriting, like we're there to make sure that it's not to be nitpicky. Yeah. It's to protect the client.
Well, obviously you don't want a deal to fall through, right? But the moment that you have one of those little things missed, it can completely nix it. I think I shared this the last time that you and I did this too, and we don't have any proof of that. But I had an example once of a client that was choosing to make the decision to buy a home unrepresented. Okay.
Yes.
So no real estate agents involved. Everybody knows my opinion on that. Use an expert, use a professional. But in this specific situation, I think this client either knew or knew of somebody that knew the person that was selling this house, and they decided to, I assume, have a seller's attorney draft up the purchase agreement for this property. Okay. Yeah. Well, what happened is that once the terms were agreed upon, both sides had signed and executed this purchase agreement. My client sent me the purchase agreement to review and start the processing of their loan. And after quickly reviewing it, I realized that they had agreed to, on this purchase agreement, a specific purchase price, and the exact wording under the seller credits items was buyer to pay seller's closing costs of $8,000.
Yep.
And the technical term, the way that was worded, means that my buyers had to pay for the seller's closing costs.
Yeah.
Which is not the intention of what they meant.
All that.
So I caught that, was able to negotiate that, and that literally, because it was a disconnect between both parties, it literally killed the deal.
Yeah.
The sellers thought that was what they meant, and the buyers
did not
thought the opposite,
that.
right? Because they were trying to minimize their out of pocket, and it ended up killing the deal. And thankfully, I was able to catch it before it really got worse. And they were able to come to a common agreement. But like that seller, because they had signatures on it, they could have enforced that. That was a legally binding contract. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just a prime example of like why it's so important to work with somebody who has a good eye for the technicalities, and that's what the kind of service that you provide is to look through those things and make sure those T's are crossed and I's are dotted, right?
The important thing that an agent can do, whether they plan on having hired help or not, is to have a system set in place, checks and balances that works for you. Everybody works differently, but have a system set in place so that you are efficient with 2 transactions or, 10 at the same time.
It has to be scalable.
That way you don't miss something.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's actually a really good point. So if there's a brand new agent listening to this episode and they're like, well, I can't afford a transaction coordinator, what are some systems that you would encourage that agent to set up in order to make sure that they're checking those boxes themselves until their business grows to the point where they could afford to have a TC in their corner?
Well, first thing, I would sit down with a experienced agent and kind of get some of those. I mean, every transaction is different, but like 95% of the plot is the same.
Okay.
Sit down with a purchase agreement, earnest money deadline, inspection deadline, kind of go down through, is the appraisal getting scheduled? Is, has inspection actually been negotiated? Is that done? Did we have any, go through the stepping points? I could keep going. Sorry.
Yeah.
My brain filled in the blanks, but it didn't actually come out with words. But I have on my transaction calendar, I have like 20 checkpoints on all of this stuff has to get done by somebody by a certain date. There's around a time frame that needs to get done. And when I get a purchase agreement in, I just change like 3 different ones. It auto calculates the rest and I throw it onto my calendar and I'm ready to go. It's all automated. But the best thing you can do is sit down and actually talk through what does a normal timeline look like for a transaction and write that down and have that printed out. So that way when you get a purchase agreement, you're like, okay, so I need to be watching for these steps at this date. Get a transaction calendar set up. And then the other thing is having email templates.
Yeah.
You will have arthritis in 2 years of real estate if you have to type every single word. Every time. And what I do is I have an email template for each one of those transaction calendar moments. Yeah. So whether it goes to the lender or the other agent or the client or whatever, somebody is getting some sort of communication when that checkpoint hits.
Yep.
And have an email template for it. Go back through, kind of edit it, do what you need to do to customize it, of course. Yeah. But those are the 2 biggest things that you can do to save yourself some time and headache. But it also, again, is a checks and balances system for yourself. Because if you send out an email at the beginning of the transaction that says, I'm going to check back with you on these dates about these things, well, you kind of have to do it now because you said you were going to, and it keeps you on pace. Right.
And I would even go one step further. What I did is not only just like touch points throughout the milestones of the transaction, but I add literally every single thing that happens to the point where like, even if it's a value add that I want the client to experience. So a thank you card, a post-closing campaign where I check in with them on their anniversary of their closing date or whatever the examples are, right? Like I literally encourage my business partners to write out every single thing that you want to have happen. And obviously for the start, you'll check those boxes. But like you said, the longer you do it, the more you'll realize. And I think another key thing that's really important is to continually check back in to make sure how you're doing on it. Because there's things that I've added to my checklist that maybe I don't bat 100 on. And so I'll make those orange. It's like, you need to put focus on this, right?
I definitely have done that because some things I do it's so automated with what I do. And then I forget, oh shoot, I probably could have told somebody that I handled that.
Well, we talked about is there's certain things that maybe don't necessarily need to happen, but they deserve to happen.
Right.
Right. And I think that that's where like that checklist will come into play, and really just outlining your entire like perfect scenario. If you were to like lay out the law of how you want the client to experience buying a house with you or selling for that matter, this is how it would go.
Yeah.
And it allows you then to perfect that and craft it and change things. And the longer that you do real estate, the more you'll realize that there's things and nuances that are out of your control, that are things that are happen. But what you can probably do is that when you experience one sort of a one-off that was a bad experience for somebody, you can implement a new thing into that process checklist to prevent that from ever happening again. Right? So I think that's really valuable stuff. This has been good. I don't know where we're at for time.
I don't either.
I feel like we're in a good place though.
Yeah.
Anything else that you can think that like, you know, whether you're an agent or a client that you'd feel called to share? Not to put you on the spot.
Well, for, again, I guess maybe pointing it back to new agents. First off, if you didn't know what a TC is or that we even exist, we do. I mean, there's a service for everything. It's 2026.
Yeah.
And there are lots of settlement companies and that are in the metro that do offer a la carte services.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can, you know, maybe provide you a list if you want one, but we know who each other are, you know, so I work for a team. So not available.
You're exclusive.
I'm exclusive.
Off the market.
Off the market. But there are a lot of TCs that do Olive Cart, and you know, if they have space that, you know, they're open, of course, you can talk to them about their services and that kind of thing.
No doubt.
It is on a per commission basis. I feel like it's achievable, but of course it's only, you know, value added is always based on your own perception. If it's not worth paying for that service right now, then don't do it. You know, you don't have to be bougie just to try to keep up or say that you have a TC on your business card. It's not needed.
Yeah, just because you have one doesn't make you a better agent, right?
Yeah.
But I tell people all the time, it's like you have to like sit back and circle, all right, if I'm going to do this service and I'm going to execute this job for these clients, what's my competitive advantage? Why should someone hire me? And if that's a step that you can add to your process to make you better what you do. I'm looking at myself internally in the mirror saying like, there's things that I'm really good at, but there's things that I'm not very good at. And having a team member and a transaction coordinator could be that gap filler for you. So
the only thing we didn't touch on is licensed versus unlicensed.
Yeah,
but since
really
we're talking about hiring somebody, typically somebody that, well, first off, if you're hiring a TC that's with like a settlement agency, they are most likely not licensed just because you have to actually have your real estate license affiliated with a brokerage. And in the state of Iowa, the regulation states that if you have your license with a brokerage, you can only work for agents in that brokerage.
Got it.
So just kind of keeping that in mind. Now, that doesn't make them any less valuable, but it does change what they can offer. So if you hear like things that I do for my team and you're like, oh, that would be nice, it may not actually directly reflect to what somebody else can do.
What are some of the main advantages of you having your license? Like, what are some things you can do that you couldn't if you didn't?
Well, you as a lender, I can talk about whatever I want with you regarding our client. I mean, of course, you know, barring, you know, their own privacy, of course, with you. But like, as what I mean basically is technically speaking with the commission, if I were unlicensed, I really can only relay documents to you and then ask you when and where closing is. There's not a whole lot else I can do. I mean, I can ask for an update. I can ask for like, you know, was the appraisal done? Like, you can ask for little updates, but like, let's say my real estate agent is gone for the weekend, and I helped negotiate the inspection because I'm licensed and I can do that. And I can formulate the new document with a new price or, you know, credit or whatever. I can make sure that you know like what's going on and whatever. But that would be a specific instance of licensed versus unlicensed.
You're able to really pick up those extra pieces, you know, other than just checking those boxes. So that's really good. Awesome. Well, this has been fun. Thank you again for being a resource. Appreciate your insight into the market. More importantly, thanks for coming back a second time.
That's okay.
Now when I tell you we have to come back.
I came back for the Northern Vessel.
Oh, that's true. Well, I'm glad I executed on it. But no, I really do think that the stuff that you do on a day-to-day basis is super valuable. And I think it's good content for everybody here as well. So I'm appreciative of you. And when I say that we got to come back and do another episode, I mean it to be a second time.
Yeah, we'll do like a real second time.
Yeah, not a third. But
no, it's okay.
Anyway, everybody watching, thanks for tuning in. This has been another episode of Educating Home Buyers. We'll see you guys next time.